Hello, everyone. This is G World 7D again hitting you. I have in front of me a publication, a journal. It's called The Ancient American Archaeology of the Americas Before Columbus. Now, this is something I used to subscribe to. I'm going to get back to subscribing to it again because I have numerous of books that I haven't read, and then a bunch of them I had read. But I'm going to get back to subscribing again because they do have some very good articles that talks about the ancient world, and particularly contact here in the Americas before Columbus. This is one particular article I really caught my eye. It was this one. It's called right here, 12th Century Welsh Fort in Indiana. Now this one is really good. Now as I turn the page, this is a very good journal. Turn the pages. Let me get there here. This is something right here you can pick up on. All right, get closer. Okay. The year 1968 was a banner year for the recurrent story of Prince Madoc, who supposedly brought or sent Welsh colonists to North America. As local southern Indiana rumors go, this one, also from that year, is a diehard. Now, Dr. Barry Fell was lecturing at Indiana University regarding his research in epigraphic evidence of ancient Old World visitation and habitation in the New World. His audience consisted primarily of faculty and staff, with only one or two students or other interesting parties. Only about a dozen people in all attended. Now I'm going to skip down a little bit. Okay? I'm going to skip down because this stuff is very, very, very important. It's very good information. This is why we should really study our history. Okay. After the lecture, the senior members of the audience asked Dr. Fell if he would consider a side trip to examine an inscription in a cliffside written in a language that none of the Hoosier State academics had been able to identify. That inscription was at Cliffy Falls at the mouth of Cliffy Creek, where it joins the Ohio River near Madison, Indiana. The gist of what Dr. Fell found at the location was I Awan Ap Zurich. In the year of our Lord, 1170, did bring this to place, and goes on to list the number of people, cows, pigs, arms, tools, and ships. Now, Professor Fell wrote the book America B.C. He talks about Celts coming in the ancient world, but actually that's really was the Mandi people. But here it goes on, and this is a very good tip. This is why we really need to study our history. You got to catch certain languages and certain words. Let me focus this right so people can see this, okay? It says right here, okay? But this tradition of the Delaware does not stand alone, okay? That the prehistoric inhabitants of Kentucky were at some immediate period overwhelmed by the tide of savage invasions from the north. Okay, it is a point upon which Indian tradition, as far as it goes, is strong and explicit. It is related in a post-humanist fragment on Western Antiquities by Reverend John P. Campbell, medical doctor, which was published in the early part of the present century, that Colonel James Moore of Kentucky was told by an old Indian that the primitive inhabitants of the state had perished in a war of extermination waged against them by the Indian, and that the last great battle was fought at the Falls of Ohio, and that the Indians succeeded in driving the Aborigines. I repeat, and that the Indians succeeded in driving the Aborigines. I'm going to say this again. And that the Indians succeeded in driving the Aborigines into a small island below rapids, where the whole lot of them were cut into pieces. The Indian further said that this was an undoubted fact handed down by tradition, and that the colonial will have proofs of it under his eyes as soon as the waters of Ohio became low. When the waters of the river had fallen, an examination of Sandy Island was made. and a multitude of human bones were discovered. You see, what this is talking about, or what this article is mainly talking about, is blacks in the ancient world. All right? And it mainly talks about Aboriginal blacks, who was before what we call Indians. Many people continue to, and I continue to hear black so-called leaders continue to say that the history of black people in this country started 400 years ago, and that's a complete lie. We've been here for thousands of years. Recently, it's supposed to be found that human remains in San Diego go back to 130,000 years. Now, before, I think Dr. David Imhotep in his book talks about Mr. Goodar, out of the University of South Carolina. Human remains was found in America over 51,000 years in North America. So South America before that. If they was found in San Diego now, there's proof in San Diego, it's 130,000 years. And now the human existence goes back in Africa 300,000 years. I tell you that Africans were migrating by ships across the world. Brother Horace Butler talks about this in his book, When Rocks Cry Out. But this is just information that I've got from Ancient American magazines now. Ancient American magazine, like I said, I used to subscribe to it. I'm going to subscribe to it again, but I have plenty of books that deals with or give you little tidbits about blacks being in ancient America. This is very informative, and that we really need to study our history and then home in on it more, because we've been taught a lie, and we continue to be taught a lie about our true history and our true accomplishments. So I really would like brothers and sisters to really look into learning their history. Look into studying their history. And then the more and more you study your history, the more and more you love yourself. Because there's no excuse for us not knowing history was all the information's out there. So if you can, please check this out. This is Ancient American Magazine, journal, magazine journal, whatever. I resubscribe to. I also subscribe to the Smithsonian, and I'm going to resubscribe to KMT Magazine, the Ancient Egyptian Journal. I know lots of times they lie in these publications, but you can still get valuable information out of them. So I just going to drop that little tidbit. I'm new to this YouTube thing, and I'm going to talk about history and sports, but this is something that's very important. This is our people's history, and the more and more we realize that we are the indigenous people of this planet, the more and more we'll feel proud of who we are and start worshiping other people and just start loving ourselves. Peace and love.